Steph, why isn't he on this? Well, Steph wasn't available, neither was Draymond Green. So it's a little different this time around. Two of the All-Stars back for the Golden State Warriors. And I think what makes us most excited is the fact that we get to see the true test of how two healthy teams will stand up to one another. What are you most looking forward to? Seiki, we'll start with you.
Well, look, I'm always looking forward to seeing Draymond Green on the court with another defensive player of his caliber like Kawhi Leonard. And, you know, you get a chance to measure guys who play on the defensive end at that elite level, sometimes against one another, but oftentimes against the other team's best offensive player. Just so happens for Draymond, Kawhi is one and the same for the Raptors. He is the alpha and omega for the Raptors this season. People ask you, what's the difference between this team? You know, what do they have now they didn't have before? Well, they've got a guy who can lock you down on defense and a guy who can get 30 on offense. And that is what's going to push them over the hump later in the season if we get a chance to see these teams match up again at some point.
And add to that, Sekou, that now you have a team in Toronto who believes in themselves when you bring in a superstar like that, and the players around them have gotten better. So now for Draymond Green, are you ready for a new player in Siakam who plays both ends of the floor now? He defends, he plays the passing lane, and now when he gets to steal time, Siakam's out running the fast break. I think Nick Nurse has done an excellent job continuing what Dwayne Casey has started with Siakam as a player.
I love Siakam. And look, I want to see how Toronto plays. 11-3 on the road this year. They are road warriors. 5-0 in back-to-backs, right? Mm-hmm. So they get great win last night. Lowry woke up, made a bunch of shots, and he's back. And this is a nice test for them. It's a regular season game, but it's their only trip there, and they have to measure themselves there. And how great can Lowry be? Can Kawhi and him both show up on the same night and get a road win at Golden State against the fully loaded group? It'd be a good one.
It's also exciting because November 29th was the first time in the last 8 attempts that Toronto was able to beat Golden State. And it just adds to the excitement of Kawhi in Toronto. And Kawhi traditionally has played really well against Golden State, going back to his days with the Spurs too. But another player who has played well in this matchup is Steph Curry. He has the most points against Toronto than any other team in the NBA. So Toronto has it coming for them. And, you know, when you look at what Steph Curry has done this season and you look at the past season, you think, how could he take his game to another level? But somehow he just continues to do so. I mean, it's really, it's remarkable.
Yeah, and I think what you forget about Steph is not just how dangerous he is as a scorer and playmaker himself, but the fear he strikes in the defense. You know, you get a chance to watch the angles that he can play. Cross-court passes. He's not just throwing to anybody. He's got Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, two of the other best shooters we maybe have ever seen on the receiving end of some of those plays. So I think Steph's fear factor with other teams is more pronounced now than it ever is. You see him off that Warriors team for an extended period of time. When he's out 10, 11 games, you almost forget just how dangerous they are when Steph's in the mix.
And it lets you know, too, Sekou, why we see our role players play better when your superstars are on the floor. So now when Steph's not on the floor, you look at everyone else outside of KD and Klay, they can't get easy shots. So they were struggling to score at times like KD has to go get 50, Klay's still getting his 30, but who's that other person? Well, when they're not on the floor, they don't get easy shots.
Yeah, they're working for everything. I mean, look at the production, the result for the team. But what's more interesting for me is how incredibly efficient he's been shooting the ball. And it's even better. Since he came back, shooting 51% from the field, better from three, like 51.8 from three.
Crazy.
97 from the line when you foul him.
Don't foul him, yes.
He's not missing any.
A walking bucket.
I mean, and Brady as a former player, I mean, he comes in and out so much, and I guess he has his whole career with injuries, but to sit out for, spans of 11 to 15 days and come back and be even more efficient of a shooter, I mean, that's so difficult. It's hard to put into words how difficult that really is.
Great point, because in the former years, Tom, you notice that we as players, you want to heal up and kind of make sure your body's right. Well, today, these guys, once that injury heals up, they're right back on the treadmill, right back on the court, doing whatever the trainers will allow them to do. So I'm not shocked as much when LeBron or KD or even Steph are great players get hurt, because you know they're doing the right things to get back on the floor.
He's such a calming presence to this team. And
oh, yes.
I don't believe for a second that, Golden State hasn't gone through adversity until this year when the Kevin Durant and Draymond situation happened. But just getting to cover their games during that time and just seeing what a necessity it was to have Steph on the road with them when maybe he was considering not traveling previously. Yeah. And just what he teaches this team but not even speaking, right? And just his silence and his calm presence.
I think it's his spirit. They are so joyful when he's around. And everyone's in awe of him on the court. I mean, and it's not like everything's geared to try to stop him.
Right.
And then he just does what he does, and it's so fun, and it's infectious, and it just takes. It's really true team synergy when he's out there.
Yeah, he's been the backbone, of what they've been able to build in Golden State. We always talk about, in the finals, Kevin Durant ends up being the finals MVP, and people are always debating who's the better player, whose team is. This is Steph Curry's franchise.
Oh, yeah.
They are the Warriors because they're a seminal player. This is the central figure in their rise, going back to when he was drafted. If Steph doesn't evolve into the superstar he is, you don't have this Warriors dynasty in the making. You don't have all these other pieces that play at the elite level that they do because Steph allows it. How many great players, all-time great players, could have the record Steph has, watch Klay break them, and be more excited for Klay than he is for him?
Yeah.
I mean, as Tom, like you said, that spirit that Steph plays with, to me, it's infectious. It's permeated that entire organization. And when he's not on that floor, you saw, they're a normal team. They're a human team. When he's out there and playing at his best, they go to another level.
So before we go to break, I know we're going to find out a lot more tonight with two healthy teams playing in the Raptors and the Warriors, but is that the best potential competition right now for the Warriors in a finals game?
If you're looking top to bottom, maybe, because Toronto's defense is the way it is, and now having Kawhi be a go-to guy, can CJ Miles we always use that if the superstars play to their ability like they're supposed to be, and now your role players match it, then possibly because they have enough, they can go deep enough.
Yeah, that versatility is definitely key.
I think you still see what happens with Boston. If they can get their act together,
yes,
they may be
if they can get their
formidable.
act
It
together.
seems like that's happening slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely, yeah. We had a feeling they would figure it out. I didn't think Boston would take the whole year, to be bumps and bruises. There's just too much talent there, and I think we all believe in Brad Stevens enough that they would get to where they need to be.
I think if Kawhi is the player that we all think he is on both ends of the floor, this might be the best matchup because somebody finally will be able to match up with Kevin Durant.
One-on-one, exactly.
Now you got somebody that could maybe challenge KD.
Yeah, you know what's so funny you say that? KD goes for 51 in his building, right? So he's like, he can match up with him. But the key to it, Kawhi got to win.
That's right.
So that's
all
the
that
part
matters.
we always talk about.
OT win, baby. All right, we have a lot of other matchups to get to. One of them being the Nets and the 76ers, the third meeting between the two teams in just over a month, really. Jimmy Butler not playing, but Joel Embiid getting ready.
Joel
He
Embiid
put on
said,
a
I'm
big
tired of
show.
shooting
Can he-
threes. Put me
There you
back
go.
in the post.